Have you ever seen something in the news or in your own life and thought, someone should really change that? Well, today we're going to look at how that actually happens. We're diving into the incredible stories of how a single idea, often born from real heartbreak, can grow into a full-blown law that changes an entire country. I mean, it's the big question, right? When you're up against the system, can one voice, one family, or even one really angry newspaper headline actually make a difference? You might be surprised. As we're about to see, the answer is a definite, loud and clear yes. So let's start at the ground level. Our first few stories are about campaigns that didn't start in some fancy office building. Nope, they started with immense personal tragedy and people who decided to turn their grief into a powerful, unstoppable force for change. Our first story is a tough one. It starts with the Turnbull family, who went through something absolutely unimaginable: a murder committed by someone who was legally armed, despite having known mental health issues. And that horrific event, that was the spark that lit a fire under the whole country. So how exactly did it go from personal tragedy to national policy? Well, it started with that one awful event. From there, the goal became crystal clear. Bobby Turnbull's campaign wasn't just about grief. It was about action. They pushed for stricter gun laws, specifically saying, hey, we need mandatory mental health screenings for anyone who wants a firearm license. And you know what? It worked. They got real, tangible changes written into the law. And here's what actually changed. Thanks to their fight, the Firearms Act was amended. Now, if you have a suspended sentence of 3 months or more, you're automatically barred from owning a firearm. But, and this is so important, it also means the police have to review a person's gun license after any report of domestic violence. It created this direct link between those early warning signs and the right to own a weapon. Okay, let's look at another incredibly powerful campaign started by one family. This time, it was born from a devastating discovery that a long history of violence had stayed hidden, and the consequences were absolutely fatal. So the trigger for this was the tragic murder of a woman named Claire Wood by her ex-partner. After her death, her family found out something horrifying. This man had a history of violence against women that Claire knew absolutely nothing about. Their goal was simple, but wow, was it revolutionary. They just wanted to give people the right to know if their partner has a violent past. The result? A landmark policy we now know as Claire's Law. And Claire's Law really has two key parts. First, there's the right to ask. This means you, or anyone who's concerned, can actually go to the police and ask about a partner's history. Then there's the right to know, which is where the police can proactively tell someone if they think that person is at risk. It's all about using information to prevent another tragedy before it happens. Okay, let's switch gears a bit. We've talked about individual voices. But what happens when you add the massive power of the media to the mix? Now we're looking at how newspaper campaigns can grab onto public anger and aim it like a laser beam right at the people in charge. This next campaign is one you've probably heard of. And a huge reason for that is because a major national newspaper, the News of the World, basically threw its entire weight behind one family's fight to better protect kids. It all started with this wave of public horror and just this overwhelming demand for something to be done. The media was brilliant at focusing all that emotion on one really clear goal. Let's give parents a way to find out if someone who has access to their kids is a known sex offender. And the result of all that pressure was a totally new disclosure scheme. So what is Sarah's Law, really? Well, it's the official name for the Child Sex Offender Disclosure Scheme. And what it does is empower parents or guardians to go to the police and formally ask for information about a specific person. It created this vital new layer of protection and gave so many parents a little more peace of mind. You know, not all newspaper campaigns are a flash in the pan after one big event. Some are just a long, slow, relentless push against a problem that just won't go away. And that was totally the case for the decades-long media fight to do something about the shocking number of people dying on UK roads. So yeah, the catalyst here wasn't just one crash, it was thousands of them, year after year. The newspapers really focused public attention on very specific common sense changes. We need tougher laws on drink driving, we need to crack down on speeding, and we need to make people wear seatbelts. It seems obvious now, but it took a huge push, and the results was a whole series of major updates to the Road Traffic Act. And think about it, the impact of these changes is something you and I see every single day. The pressure from these campaigns led directly to lower drink driving limits, speed cameras popping up everywhere, and the law that finally made wearing a seatbelt mandatory. All of these things we take for granted now are the direct result of that sustained media pressure. All right, for our final section, we're looking at a totally different kind of campaign. This is the professional, long game approach of pressure groups. These are organizations that use deep research, constant lobbying, and public awareness campaigns to chip away at a problem, sometimes for decades. And we're going to look at two really powerful examples. First, you got the British Lung Foundation, who've been on the front lines fighting for cleaner air for years. And on the other hand, there's the Howard League for Penal Reform, which campaigns for a smarter, more effective justice system. For the British Lung Foundation, the driving force was this massive public health crisis caused by lung disease and pollution. Their goal wasn't just one thing. It was a whole package: cleaner air, tougher laws on smoking, and just generally better health policies. And you know what? All that persistence paid off big time, with some of the most important public health laws we've seen in a generation. I mean, the impact of their campaign is huge. The Health Act of 2006, that's the reason you can't smoke in pubs, restaurants, or offices anymore. And that 2014 Act, that made it illegal to smoke in a car if there are kids inside. These were massive cultural changes, and they were driven by the focused, dedicated work of this pressure group. Now let's look at the Howard League. Their campaign was sparked by a prison system that was in total crisis. It was overcrowded and seemed to be all about punishment, punishment, punishment. Their aim was to totally flip that script, to argue that rehabilitation is actually a much more effective and humane way to go. And their long-term work led to some seriously major reforms. So how do you get a whole philosophy turned into policy? Well, look at the Criminal Justice Act of 2003. It's a direct reflection of their influence. It put a whole new emphasis on rehabilitation and pushed for community-based sentences as a real alternative to just locking people up. It was a huge shift in the way the entire justice system thinks. So we've seen individuals, newspapers, and professional pressure groups all make huge waves. Now let's just pull it all together and take a quick look at the anatomy of how this change actually happens. This chart kind of lays it all out, doesn't it? You can see the individual campaigns, like the ones for Bobby Turnbull and Claire's Law, were all about powerful public advocacy, just people telling their stories. Then you have the newspaper campaigns for Sarah's Law and road safety, which used intense media pressure. And finally, the pressure groups, the British Lung Foundation and Howard League, they played the long game with lobbying and research. See, different tactics, different timelines, but all roads led to the same destination: a new law. So from a single heartbroken family to a massive organized lobby group, we've seen over and over that change really is possible. It kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it, when you look around the world today, what's the injustice that's just waiting for its champion? What's the thing that needs to change next?